Hello everyone. A warm welcome to CRM Stage. My name is Meera Nair and I am two-time Salesforce MVP. I got 21 Salesforce certifications and I am also leading Trivandrum Architect Community Group. I am an active community speaker and blogger. Thank you so much CRM Stage organizers for this opportunity to share my knowledge. So today we are going to see Salesforce security, how we can enhance Salesforce security using restriction rules and scoping rules. This is our agenda for today. We are going to see an overview of how Salesforce security is set up, then an overview of restriction rules and scoping rules. There is a comparison of restriction rules and scoping rules then we are going to see how we can apply restriction rules and scoping rules using a specific example and how we can bring additional flexibility to scoping rule using flow. So how Salesforce security is set up? The basic rule is that we are going to provide the least access to users based on the requirement. That is, if there is at least one user in the system who should not be seeing a particular record, at that moment we will be setting the organization-wide default as private. Then the access will be opened using other features available in Salesforce. For example, role hierarchy. That means any users on top of your role hierarchy. If you are the record owner, any user on top of your role hierarchy will be having access to your records. The other scenario, you can have sharing rules created in your system for sharing specific records with users. Other option is manual sharing, where you can select a particular record and you will be able to share that with other users. There is Apex managed sharing also, where if the sharing criteria is very complex and you will not be able to achieve that using sharing rules, you can have that logic built in your Apex trigger or Apex code. Then you can build the sharing logic. Maybe we can quickly see an example of record or a specific object in Salesforce called job applications. So throughout this session, all our scenarios will be explained using this custom object called job application. So we are expecting like this job applications are like applications to your organization that might be getting created from outside of your system or internally. Maybe like through some community, users might be submitting applications for specific jobs. So based on my requirement, all users in the system are not supposed to see all the job applications in the system. So what should be the organization-wide default that we need to give to this particular job application? So of course, it is going to be private, right? So I can quickly show you that here. So you can see job application, I have given the OWD as private internally and externally and also enabled the access through role hierarchy. And now that means at this moment only the owner should be able to see the record and any users on top of his role hierarchy. Now there is a specific role in the system called recruitment team. So my requirement is that all the job applications should be visible to the recruitment team. So how you will be able to open up that access? For that, you can see I have created a sharing rule here. Let us see the details. So what I have done is, if the applicant name is not empty, I am going to share the record with a specific role called recruitment team. And the access level given is read write. You can give either read only or read write. So this is how through sharing rule you will be able to share the access. Now suppose you want to do manual sharing. So what does that mean? How you will be able to share records manually? For that we have got one job application already created in the system. And when you go to the record detail page, you can see all the current record access through sharing hierarchy. So once you open this, you can see like which all users has access to this particular record and what is the level of access. Now suppose I would like to share this record with someone else manually. For that, you can go to sharing. You can search for a specific user and you can also mention the access level. This is how the manual sharing is working within the system. Now let us see what is the significance of restriction rules. So like we have seen, the organization by default gives you the list, access to the system, and on top of that, you can apply other sharing mechanism like role hierarchy, sharing rules, or manual sharing to open up access of specific records to other users. But the restriction rules allow you to apply a filter on top of shared records, and you can restrict access of specific records based on criteria. For example, we have seen all the job applications are visible to all the recruitment team members. But you have additional criteria on top of that. Like, the access should be controlled based on the region. So, for example, if I am a recruitment manager, I should be seeing records only from my region. For example, if I am from APAC, I should be seeing only job applications from APAC. So those kind of restrictions we will be able to apply using sharing rules. And you won't be having any visibility to records in other region. Later we are going to see how we will be able to build this particular filtering using restriction rules. Now we have scoping rules. So scoping rules is also helping us to apply a filter on top of the shared record. But there is a difference. The difference is that you are still having access to the other records in the system. For example, if I am a recruitment manager from APAC, in my current view, probably it might be a list view or it might be a report. If you apply a particular filtered by scope mechanism, my access will be restricted to records only in APAC region. But when you try to open the record in some other mechanism, or if the record is already opened in the system, you still retain visibility to records in other region also. For example, you can still view records in EMEA or AMER region even if the scoping rule is applied on top of my sharing mechanism. Later we can see how this is working. Now let us see a comparison between restriction rule and scoping rule. The important thing is that both are available only on Lightning Experience. So you might need to turn off your Classic completely if you want to utilize restriction rule or scoping rule. Now, in Visual Objects, these two are available. You can see restriction rule is available in all the custom objects, external objects, and some standard objects like contract, task, and events. Now, here comes the biggest advantage. You can see restriction rules applied on external objects also. You all know that external objects are objects which are getting created from data model available external to Salesforce. And by default, if you are having access to external objects, you are going to see all the records available as part of external objects. And if you want to restrict access based on some criteria, till now there was no other option. So now it is available through restriction rules. And if we move to scoping rule, it is available on all custom objects and some standard objects like account, case, contact, event, lead, opportunity, and task. And where these rules are getting applied. Restriction rules are getting applied on list views, lookups, related list, reports, search, SOQL, and SOSL. Similar to that, scoping rule also applied on list views, but we need to select filter by scope. Later I will be showing you that. And lookups, report also. Again, if this is enabled only when we are selecting filter by scope. And again, it is available on search, SOQL, and SOSL. And importantly, what is the access when you try to access a record that got removed by filter? In restriction rule, you are losing complete access to the other records. But using scoping rule, you can still access the records. What are the different options to create these records? Both can be created from setup or using tooling API or using metadata API. And what are some of the other considerations for rule creation? Both restriction rules and scoping rules you can see in dev and enterprise editions. you can create a maximum of 2 rules per object. And for professional and unlimited, it is 5 rules per object. And other important factor is that we can create only one rule per user per object. And how you will be able to deploy the newly created restriction rules and scoping rules. That is through change set and unlock packages. Some other considerations for restriction rule: it does not apply on child objects, and you can create or you can apply only equals operators while creating restriction rules, and no and or formulas are supported while creating this. And restriction rules does not apply for code executed in system mode. That is, if you are executing a code anonymously through developer console or some other mechanism, you still have visibility to all the records in the system and the restriction rule is not getting applied. The second scenario, when the user is having view all and modify all permission, again you have visibility to all the records. And one consideration is that the search might not be returning all the expected results when you have restriction rule, because it's preventing you from viewing specific records. Now, when we are coming to scoping rules, it is again not applied on child objects. Conditions apply only equals operator. Otherwise, we need to use SOQL for criteria. Similar to scoping rule, similar to restriction rule, scoping rule might also not return all the expected results during a search. And again, scoping rule is not supported for is person account. If person account is enabled, those related fields are not part of scoping rule. These are some comparison between restriction rule and scoping rule. Now it is demo time. Let us see an example and we can see how the scoping rules and restriction rules are getting applied. So let us go to my environment itself. So in this window, I logged in as a sysadmin user, and if we go to job application, and from where you will be able to create restriction rules and scoping rules. So this will be available under object manager. Under a specific object, you can see restriction rules and scoping rules. And we have got 2 job applications in the system. So I'm just going to the list view so that we can see all the records. And maybe I will show you a different view. So this is another window where I have logged in as a recruitment manager. So if you open this, you can see this is a recruitment manager, and under users you can see this recruitment manager is having the role recruitment team. So when you open recruitment manager view, under job applications, I have created a new view called all applications. Here you can see currently the user, that is recruitment manager, is able to see both the records in the system. And based on the geography, you can see one record belongs to APAC region and one record belongs to EMEA region. Again, when you open the particular recruitment manager record, and you can see there is a geography custom field created on user also, and the current user geography is APAC. Now, suppose my requirement is that this particular recruitment manager should only see records that belongs to APAC region, because what we are seeing currently, he has got access to both records, both APAC and EMEA. So let us see through restriction rule how you can control the visibility so that this particular recruitment manager is going to see only record from APAC region. For that, let us go to setup job applications, and under restriction rules, you can see here I already created a restriction rule called geography sharing. I will quickly edit this and show you all the criteria. So there is 2 set of criteria that you need to set up for a restriction rule. First is user criteria and second is record criteria. User criteria means on which all users this particular criteria is getting applied. Record criteria means which are the records for which this particular user is going to have access. So here you can see the user criteria mentioned if the user.geography equals epoch. That is my user criteria. So what is the record criteria? My record criteria is that job application geography also equals epoch, meaning I should see only job applications that belongs to epoch region. Now, this is not active at this moment, so let me activate this and save this record. Now, let me go back to the recruitment manager window and let me refresh this. So currently you can see we had access to both the records, but when I applied restriction rule, you can see he has access to only one record now which belongs to APAC region. And let us try and see if I try to open the other record. For that, from my own login, I am trying to open the second record. And let me try to open the same record from the other window. So here you can see it shows no access, and because of that I am not able to open this particular record. This is how through restriction rule you will be able to restrict access to specific records, and this user is having access to only records that belongs to APAC. This is how restriction rules are working. Now, the same criteria let us apply using scoping rules and see how it is going to work. For that, what we need to do is let us deactivate this particular scope restriction rule. Let me deactivate, save this. At this moment, if I go back to the list view for recruitment manager and if I refresh, you will be able to see that he got access back to both the records because the restriction rule got deactivated at this moment. Now, let me go to scoping rules. Here also I have already created the scoping rule, but let me edit and show you like what is the criteria that I applied here currently. So the format of setting up scoping rule is same as restriction rule. Here also you can define the user criteria. Here instead of like last time I had coded the user region as APAC. Instead of that, now what I need is I want to apply this scoping rule to all the users that belongs to recruitment team role. So that's why here I am putting the criteria as user role ID equals ID of the recruitment team role. Now, what is the criteria? Again, we are having more general criteria here. So here what I am putting is if the job application geography equals user.geography. So here I am not hard coding later. Earlier I hard coded it as attack, but here I am giving like geography equals the job application geography equals users geography. That is how the control will be restricted. Now let me activate this and see what is the difference. So we activated the scoping rule. Let me go back and refresh this list view again. Here you can see since the user or the recruitment manager belongs to APAC region, now he can see only the record that belongs to APAC region. But if I go to the screen where I try to open the other record previously for restriction rule, it was not visible. But when I apply scoping rule and refresh the screen, you can see even if that is not available as part of list view, you can still open and view the details related to the scoping rule. That means scoping rules are just restricting your current view, but you are still retaining access to the other records. So where this might be useful, or what is the difference between restriction rules and scoping rules. Suppose in the first scenario, that is when we use restriction rules, my criteria was that I want to see only the records that belongs to my region. So in the traditional approach, how you will be handling? You might be creating multiple public groups, that is each public group belongs to each region, and then you can have separate criteria based sharing rules to share the records. But that can be now easily achieved using a restriction rule without creating multiple groups, but based on specific criteria. Now, my recommend is that at a time, so the condition got changed. That is, I don't want to restrict the access based on my region. I would like to work on all the region records, but at this moment or at a specific moment, I want to concentrate on a particular region. For example, currently I would like to look into all the records that belongs to APAC, and maybe tomorrow I would like to work on all the job applications from EMEA. So that is the moment I will be able to utilize scoping rules. And the other factor is that, like I mentioned, in the scoping rules, if that needs to get applied, there is a specific setup, additional setup that you need to do. That is, there is show filters, and when you open show filters, by default, it will be filtered by owner on, like, my job application or all job applications. But if we need to apply scoping rule on top of that, we need to select filtered by scope. Then only the scoping rules are going to get applied on this particular record. But how we can make this more dynamic? Now I am seeing all the APAC record, and now I need to work on records that belongs to EMEA or some other region. So one option is that you can go to that particular user and we can edit and change the geography as some other region, so that you will be able to view records of that particular region. As an example, now I am editing the region geography. Let me go back and see, like, what was the other value. It was EMEA. So what I'm going to do is, on this particular user, I'm updating and changing the geography of that user as EMEA. Saving the record. Now if I go back to the list view and refresh this, you can see he is now seeing job applications from EMEA. But this solution is not that much user friendly, right? You need to go back to user each time, update the value, and all users might not be having permission to even edit their user information. So how we can handle this in a better manner? For that, I have created a flow to support with this operation. For example, here you can see a button, new button called Select Geography. So once I click on this button, this is getting navigated to a new screen where I will be able to select all the available region. So currently it is EMEA. So I would like to go back to APAC. So I'm choosing the value as APAC and clicking on next. You can see a message here saying geography selection got updated. So I'm clicking on finish. Now you can see automatically the list view got updated to refer to APAC records only. So like this way, you can make this more dynamic. And at the back end, what is happening is, this is a screen flow. And the screen flow, when we select a particular pick list value at user record, it is getting updated. Let me show you the flow in detail. So this is a screen flow that I have created. And then I created a button to associate this particular screen flow with that button. The first screen is that we can select a geography. So let me select this. You can see there is a geography flow screen component, and this is a pick list, and pick list value is coming from user geography standard pick list value. So once you select a particular value, then it is going to another operation called update record. You can see this is an update record, and it is going to update user geography. And if you see the criteria and details, you can see this operation is updating user object, where it is the current user, current logged in user, and the value that we are going to update is user's geography, and the assigned value is the geography value that we selected from the pick list. And once this update is completed and success, you are going to display a message that geography selection code updated. So that is how, using scoping rules and you adding a dynamic flow, you can make this more controllable, and you will be able to apply more dynamic operations on your record visibility. So we have gone through the details of how we will be able to set up all the details, and these are some resources I referred for creating this presentation. And also there is a blog post that I created on all these details, and so if you go back to my blog, you can see the same scenario and all the details I have explained here. So if you would like to take a look at this, you can see all the details. Thank you so much for attending this session. And once again, I would like to thank you, the organizers, for having me here. Thank you, and enjoy the other sessions also. Bye.